Welcome back to the No Higher Calling podcast. You are in for a treat today. I have my friend Becca, I almost said Canavan, Grant. Wow, blast from the past. We went to college together, so we knew each other like prior to our married days. But Becca is no stranger to the podcast. She's been on before, and everything she has to share is so helpful. She is kind of one of my two, I call you my science-y friends. I think we've chatted before, maybe nerd's more appropriate, but I don't feel like that's a very
Love
kind.
it.
No, God has really orchestrated your life and given you opportunities to get some education and some learning that has been so helpful in the realm of health and wellness. That has directly impacted my life through our friendship. And then we have been able really to kind of share that with others through the podcast. So here we are again for another one of these chats that I know is just going to be so helpful. But Becca, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I am so thrilled to be here. I love every time we get to chat, and this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm excited to dive in.
Great. Well, before we jump into our topic too much, in case people are new to you, haven't heard you before on the podcast, why don't you share a little bit about kind of who you are and what you're doing in life?
Yeah, I'm Rebecca Grant, as she said, and my husband and I are here in Charlotte, North Carolina. He works on staff at a church, and I am also a mama of 4 and loving that and the adventure of homeschooling. And then I also am a holistic nutrition coach that also works with nervous system regulation. And I especially just am called to work with moms. And I work with anyone and everyone, but my calling and my passion is to really help moms, because that is where I found that I needed the most help in a really desperate season. And so that's where I love to partner with women and just come alongside them and encourage them holistically in every possible way, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And that is just a calling I believe God has given me in the last couple of years. And I am really excited to be stepping into it.
Well, I'm so excited because that's really what we're going to dive into on this podcast episode. This is part 2 of really 2 episodes to help women navigate postpartum depression. That's something that has touched my life. It's touched your life. It's touched the life of the other lady that I interviewed. And I think it touched the life of so many women. And a lot of times there's a lot of negative emotions that come with that: embarrassment, shame, confusion. Where do I turn? Where do I get help? Even as a Christian, we feel like, okay, where do I go? Where do I turn? And so I really just felt burdened to address this and really equip women with some tools on how they can navigate this. And the first episode was really focusing in on the spiritual aspect, leading into the emotional. But Pastor's wife, Ashley Weber, came on and she did such a great job tackling it from that angle. But if we left it there, we'd really be missing the whole picture. So I'm going to have you here to really kind of pick up from there and transition into the physical side of it, how we can support ourselves in that stage of motherhood. So I'm just going to let you go with it. I may interject here and there, but I've seen your notes. They're amazing. And I think what you have to share is really going to help give people direction and somewhere to go, practical things to implement.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really excited that you do have that spiritual resource, and that is definitely part of it. But for time's sake, I will stick really strictly to the physical and emotional side of postpartum depression. So if you are listening, I know that even just saying that could be a little bit triggering. And I want you to know that everything that we're going to talk about is said with so much love. And if there's something difficult that you hear, I want you to know that it comes from a place of love and someone that has walked through it. And I hope you can just keep listening and find some encouragement and some really practical tips as well. So starting off, I really believe that when we talk about postpartum depression, I think it needs to be shared so much more that postpartum depression truly, I will not say it's only this, but really on its foundation, it's definitely postpartum depletion. And there are for sure other mental issues, but they often actually tie back to physical issues. And our mind and our body are so connected, and that's actually a beautiful thing. It's the way that God made us. And so we're going to kind of tackle this in 2 parts. We're going to start with the physical, and then we're also going to talk about the mental, emotional as well. Okay, so really quickly, my own experience, like I just said, I have 4 kiddos, and after my first, nothing really. And after my second, I was surprised. I didn't really know what postpartum depression was, but definitely struggled with it a little bit. And some really just, I think looking back, it was a lot of overwhelm and probably being very undernourished and just not realizing that these huge hormone fluctuations and crazy emotions are actually somewhat normal, you could say, especially if we're in an undernourished state and our body is living in a constant state of stress. And at that time, I was not, I thought I was eating really healthy, but I was really under eating and not taking care of my body well. And that definitely contributed to a difficult third pregnancy, a difficult birth, and some trauma in that birth, and then a very dark postpartum season after that third birth. And I first tried to approach it just spiritually, and that was, of course, helpful. Went through some counseling, but I couldn't understand why I was still struggling so much. And that's when I came across HTMA, actually, which is mineral balancing. And I worked with someone and found out I was severely depleted in so many nutrients. And as I started building those stores back up, it's like I could feel the life pouring back into me, and it takes time to balance. And then by the Lord's grace, for so many different reasons, my fourth pregnancy and birth was very redemptive. And also that postpartum season still had moments, but through the tools that the Lord has given me to learn through physical and mental and emotional, I was able to not be stuck there, but to see it for what it was, and then know how to combat that on all the levels. So I want to walk through some of these more practical things. On the physical side of things, I think we really need to recognize that pregnancy and postpartum, especially if you are breastfeeding in your postpartum season, is extremely energy expensive on the body, and it depletes essential minerals and nutrients from your body with every baby. And so that becomes a compounding effect, which is what I discovered as it got worse and worse with each baby. And I'm not trying to denigrate that at all. Like, it's an incredible gift, but in some ways, God created our bodies. We sacrifice for our children right now, but also as they're being formed in the womb, and then even as we continue to breastfeed them, often their sustenance and their growth is at our expense if we do not know how to really nourish our bodies well, and if we're not aware of the nutrients that our bodies actually need. And really, it's just going to go back into baby as well. So your mineral stores are hugely important, and you may not be as familiar when I say the word minerals. We hear the term vitamins a lot of times, and essential nutrients, but minerals are your stress buffer. They're also your spark plugs in the body. So energy and your metabolism, which is going to just kind of be a cascade effect on your thyroid and your adrenals. And I know I might be saying words that you're not as familiar with, but you could think of it as stress management, your energy, and then your mental state as well is going to pull in there as well. But one more thing I want to bring out about this, because I feel like it's just really missed, and I think it's starting to become a little bit more talked about in our culture, our society, is how much we need to take care of moms. I feel like that was lost for maybe a generation or two, and how the first 3 months postpartum, it's 3 months, it's not 6 weeks, right? It's not, yes, technically your uterus is back to its size, hopefully in 6 weeks, but it really takes at least 3 months to restore blood volume. Honestly, it takes more to 8 to 12 months to restore all the blood volume that is lost. And then your body, what I'm trying to make a point of here is all that energy that you're expending is going into rebuilding your body and nourishing and healing. So we need to be nourishing just for that. And then if we are also breastfeeding on top of that, a lot of times we forget that it's almost actually more than pregnancy, more energy expensive, because not only are we now still sustaining a little beautiful baby, but we are also actively trying to repair and heal. And if we do not, those first 3 months really are crucial, but first the 6, really 12 months is really crucial to just nourish the body to healing, because we will lose, of course, minerals, but we'll also lose essential fatty acids and vitamins. And if we do not intentionally replete these nutrient stores, it can affect women for up to 7 to 10 years after birth, which isn't that just astounding? There's a book, if you ever want to look into it, there's a book called The Postnatal Cure about postnatal depression and the links between nutrient deficiencies and many postnatal issues, postpartum issues.
Mhm.
But you add in a bunch of different factors, back-to-back babies, tandem nursing perhaps, and honestly just our modern lifestyle of bounce back culture perhaps, or
Mhm.
just go, 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 or not having a community that you can call on, even just to emotionally know that they're there, not even just physically
Mhm.
know that they're there, is really going to affect us. And that's why, unfortunately, sometimes if you are not in that community, you have to learn how to nourish your own body. I hope that you have a community around you that you can call on. And a lot of times when we get in this depressed state, we become very isolated. And so reaching out is so important. But sometimes I know I was in that situation for one of my postpartums where I was not near family and I was, are very inward focused, right? Not in a bad way,
Mhm.
but we're just kind of in that survival mode.
Yeah.
And one of the best things that you can do is set just a few simple goals, not goals isn't even the right word, rhythms
Mhm.
to begin pouring some nutrients and nourishing back into your life and to yourself and to your babies. Intentional postpartum is just essential for your physical health, not only right now, but actually long term as well. And I do just want to mention this, that your postpartum season can actually be a little bit of a projecting mirror image of what your menopause season can look like. And so if we think about our moms and all these women that went through the generation or two before us that are having horrific menopause issues,
Mhm.
there's a lot of links to your breastfeeding and postpartum seasons and the direct correlations to menopause
Mhm.
and beyond. So if not just for right now, for in the future, for how your body's going to remember, almost have like muscle memory of how your hormones are functioning and your body is being nourished now. And it's going to mirror project later. I just thought that was really fun
That
because
is
I think sometimes,
fascinating. That's why you're
yeah,
my friend. I love learning these things.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But our body is going to sacrifice itself for a sweet
Mhm.
baby every time. We do all the time, the lack of sleep, right? And a lot of these normal factors like sleep loss and under eating, we may not realize how much we actually need to be eating, especially for breastfeeding.
Mhm.
It's going to greatly affect our metabolism, our blood sugar management, which is going to play into hormone issues, our adrenal function, our immune and gut function, and just again, that overall hormone balance, which is already a little crazy postpartum
Mhm.
anyway. Um, but our mind and our body are beautifully connected. So we are going to get to the practical steps here in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to, I guess, just highlight why it's so necessary to restore nutrients, because when our body is affected, even if we don't realize the connection to our mind and to our mental health, it is most definitely a huge factor. I don't know if you, in your postpartum experiences, have seen some of those links between physical and mental health.
Yes, I have. Yeah, for sure.
It took me learning the hard way a little bit, but that's why we're
Well,
sharing
no, I
this.
mean,
Yeah,
same, right?
yeah.
Same.
You don't
But
have
I
to.
did, yeah, I did notice that. It is, and really, we were talking before, that's why I wanted to do these two episodes. It was too much for one. But
Mhm.
all of this, God created us in these different parts, yet so interwoven, and they do affect each other.
They do, and beautifully so. It's an
Mhm.
intricate connection, and when we can begin to see that and honor that, it is amazing how our body begins to flow.
Mm.
Um, but yes, our mind and our body are so connected, and if our body is struggling, even if we can't see it, our mind, our mental health will definitely be struggling too. There is so much research that links post nutrient depletion in the postpartum season to postpartum mental health. I think postpartum depression, postpartum rage, postpartum anxiety, direct links to nutrient depletions, and then how that then can kind of have a cascading effect on different systems in our body that will greatly affect our mental health.
Yeah.
And this is something, yes, I'm referring to different studies here, but I have now worked with probably almost 100 moms, and a large percent of them are postpartum. And
Mhm.
so I'm just seeing it more and more and more. And it just continues to give me a greater and greater passion to
Yeah.
share this, because um, this is never wasted. If you've walked through
Mhm.
postpartum, and I see this now, I would never wish to go through that again. But now I can see, like, the Lord can use that season in so many
Mhm.
ways for you to encourage a woman that you would have never known how to encourage if you haven't walked through that. So let
Yes.
me just say that, like, the Lord can redeem that spiritually, emotionally, but even physically, that now, like, every time I see a postpartum mama, I'm like, I'm bringing you a meal. There's no questions. And like, it's going to be a
Yeah.
nourishing meal, right? Like, now we know we can do better for ourselves, but even
Mhm.
in little ways, we can reach out to the women in our circles and help them even on the physical side of things as well, and knowing that it's going to affect their mental status.
Yeah.
So just had to share that, because as I do HTMAs with so many different mamas, I'm just like, okay, we all need this help. But
Yes,
nutrient
for sure. And
depletion.
I
Go
really
ahead.
feel like that's what I came to. It was after my fourth, which I had a miscarriage before her. So
Mhm.
that pregnancy was just different than any that I had had. And we had some other life factors going on in my postpartum season with her. But I remember feeling like my mind and my emotions were broken, and I had tried everything I could to fix them.
Mm,
And I
yeah,
didn't know what to do. And that's, I think, about the time I reached out to you with HTMA.
yeah,
And so you really started helping me on the physical side, which that was kind of my like last resort. Like nothing else is working. So
yeah.
maybe I need to do something to my body. But that was the catalyst that,
Mm,
like you said, had that cascading effect on every other aspect. And you are right. I would not have chosen that season for myself, but God has really used that and has redeemed that in
mm,
ways that, hey, now I may not have felt the need for a podcast like this had
yeah,
I not been the one in that dark season. And
yeah.
I just pray that God will use this. And I mean, he is. He's using you and your experience. So I think it's just a beautiful testament. He always brings beauty from ashes if we let him.
Yes,
And some of our darkest seasons can really be beautifully redeemed.
they can. And then what a testament to his grace and his kindness to
Yeah.
us.
Mhm.
Um, Okay, let's dive a little bit into the more mental side of things. And I want to talk about our nervous system. So, this was something for me that also was a factor in my third postpartum season. Went through a little bit of some emotional trauma and different things, and didn't realize how much the fact that I was also physically depleted and then extra emotional stress. Just
Mhm.
it was a perfect storm, you could say.
Yep. No, been
And
there.
and it was really rough. And I didn't learn this immediately. I started with the physical and it made massive changes, but I did still struggle with a few mental issues. And then something else happened, and it just kind of started coming back. And I was like, wait, I'm not even in a postpartum season. Why am I struggling with this? And that's when I learned about nervous system regulation. And I was working actually with a holistic doctor at that point. I was dealing with some mold toxicity. That was kind of the issue that was driving a lot of things. And he said, you need to keep supporting your body, keep doing all the nourishing things you're doing. But he said, your body feels like it's on fire, but it's actually your brain and your mind that's on fire. And I was like, okay. So he put me through this nervous system regulation course, and took 3 months to go through it, but it truly made such a difference. And then sparked, of course, me always going back to school, sparked me
Mhm.
going through a course and becoming certified in all the things.
Yeah.
Um, but your nervous system, basically, I'm going to try to keep this simple because it's so hard to break this all down into one short little session here. But your nervous system is obviously part of your brain, your central nervous system and your autonomic nervous system. And it's where your body perceives what is going on around you. So, your eyes see stuff, and we go to our nervous system, and it's going to tell us, basically, if we break it down, is this safe or is this dangerous, right?
Mhm.
And if it's safe, we can switch into parasympathetic nervous system, rest, digest, chill mode. That's where we want to be all the time. But
Mhm.
the other system is your fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system. And this is where we feel a lot of anxiety, a lot of rage, a lot of those unwanted emotions and responses that we deal with and that are really
Mhm.
heightened in the postpartum season. And so I'm sharing all that to say that that's actually a little bit normal postpartum. It's a little bit of that mama bear response, is that those our stress hormones are actually heightened. So I think even just recognizing that, wow, okay, this is actually a created system in my body. I think for so long I was scared of what was happening in my body. I was
Mhm.
scared of my emotions, and recognizing that, okay, God made my emotions to fluctuate. We're going to talk about ways to work with them instead of against them or be controlled by them. But even just recognizing that this is not an emergency, right? We really have to signal safety. But this is where the physical side really comes in as well. Depletion of those nutrients over time, or a specific trauma like a difficult birth or whatever it could be, especially if you have a trauma in a postpartum season. We're a lot more tender in a postpartum season. It will affect our brain and our mind a lot more. This will turn on something called the cell danger response in the body. And it's been phrased a fire alarm that turns on in your cells and doesn't turn off unless you learn how to signal safety. And what happens is your body and your brain kind of flip into this hyper vigilant, everything is dangerous mode. And we don't really know this. This is subconsciously, right?
Yeah.
But this dysregulation shows up in everything. It physically looks like us snapping at people all the time. And yes, there is a spiritual side of this, but I'm just focusing on the physical.
Yeah.
Us being very snappy, being very jumpy, of always assuming that the baby is going to be hurt. Those intrusive thoughts. I don't know if anybody has dealt with intrusive thoughts. I dealt with terrible intrusive thoughts. And I was like, what is wrong with me, right?
Mhm.
And that's actually our body forecasting and trying to find the worst case scenario in order to protect us. Have you found that you forecast the worst possible thing that could happen in
Mm.
this situation? And we think we're going crazy, right? But we can actually recognize that this is actually a protective mechanism by the brain. We don't want to live like that. I'm not saying, oh yeah, okay, so it's all fine. There is actually a way. The big thing that we need to do is that we get stuck in this fight or flight mode. Survival, everything's the worst, and it becomes a very kind of a victim mindset, right? And God created us to flow, to have a flux between the two. We need to be able to mount that fight or flight response, but we also want to be able to live in the chill response too. And the beautiful flex and flow is when we can flow easily back and forth in between, and we can come back to homeostasis instead of staying in fight or flight. But it takes some tools when we're stuck there to turn off the cell danger response and to tell our body we're safe. We're safe. And we do that through nutrition. And we're going to get to these practical steps here in a minute. But it's also some active work in our brain, some brain rewiring. So that sounds like a big term. It's like, oh my goodness, do I have to go get a bunch of wires connected to my head? No. And actually it's scriptural that we renewing our minds is
Mhm.
basically brain rewiring. Okay. And there's some practical, more psychological sides of it as well. But that dysregulation, I wish I had, I didn't realize this was going to be a video episode, or I would have printed this out. But I want you to picture a little graphic of, imagine some color blocks here. Okay. So at the bottom, I have purple, and then I have green, and then I have yellow, and then I have red. Okay. Green is good. Just think green is good. Life is good. We're functioning well. Yellow, we're hitting, that's alarm. And red is rage. We're split our top, right? Down here at the
Mhm.
purple, this is just one more note I want to bring up about this because we're familiar with yellow and red. Down here at purple is
Mhm.
an overactivation of the nervous system. So our nervous system can only handle so much stimulation. I'm sure you felt that,
Mhm.
overstimulated. So many triggers before we can no longer mount the stress response, and we drop into the purple. What is we're made to do is to be able to climb like a ladder, right? We should be in green. We climb up as the stress hormones start mounting, and then we should be able to climb back down, find safety, find
Mhm.
green. But what happens is we get stuck in red, and our body cannot physically continue the stress response. And so our body drops into this purple, which is disassociated, disconnected, depressed. And then our mind follows suit because we cannot maintain that stress response. And I have found what often happens for me as someone who has walked through postpartum depression, when in my fourth postpartum season, when I felt the thought patterns and the physical responses of depression, I was able to see that I was living in purple. So I want you to think of these colors. I was living in purple. And it's actually incredibly freeing for me to learn about the nervous system. There are definitely deep-rooted depressions, but I think a lot of times we get so scared when we feel the effects of depression and we start to realize, oh, I'm a little depressed. It can almost drive a deeper depression. I don't know if you've been there, and it can get really scary and really deep. And what I want you to realize is, for sure, we need to seek outside help sometimes, but the more you rewire and regulate your nervous system, the sooner you're able to see, oh, I'm living in purple, and there's coping mechanism tools that we can use to come back to green. So I know that might have been a little bit technical, trying to keep it very simple without overstimulation and that there, but it was incredibly helpful for me to realize in my 4th postpartum season that when I hit those feelings of depression, my instant response was almost like a trauma response, like, oh my goodness, I'm going through depression again. And it was scary, right? But take it to the Lord, but then also to actually understand what's going on in your body is really helpful, because God made your body. God made your nervous system. Your body is trying to protect you, actually. And so when we can recognize that and say, oh, I don't have to stay here. I am created to come back to peace and to come back to fellowship with God, with others, and a good relationship in my own mind and body. And that's actually such a freedom when we can recognize how our mind and body work together. And even if you don't understand every little part of it, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a picture. One more thing I want to say on this is that emotions can be really scary. And whatever your background is with emotions, I don't want to go too deep into this. I feel like we often will shut down scary emotions. And there's a saying that when you shut down an emotion, you trap it in your body. And if you're not familiar with this, I realize it could sound like a little like, okay. But emotions are meant to flow through us. Good emotions, bad emotions, and emotions truly are signals to us, right? When we hit intense rage or intense anger, yes, take it to the Lord, but also I want you to physically, not just think of it spiritually, I want you to think of emotion from a physical standpoint as well. And emotion is always a trigger for you with your kids as well. You know, we see them and we're like, oh, they need a snack. That's you too, mama. Like when you hit these things, they're actually signals like, oh, wow, I have not slowed down all day. I have been just going all day. I haven't, there's so many different things that we can plug in here. But when those emotions hit, instead of immediately jumping to shame or despair, we can recognize, oh, this emotion is telling me something about me, about God, about what my body might need. I probably need to balance my blood sugar right here. I probably need to pull in some nutrition, something to balance the stress hormones. So just the fact that emotions are actually a beautiful gift to us from God, not to be shamed, but when we're aware of them, that's when we are actually able to be in control of them. So the verse, God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, of a sound mind. But if we are scared of our emotions, we are not thinking with a sound mind. And God gave us a sound mind to recognize what that is and what actually the deeper issue is going on, be it spiritual, emotional, physical. So that, I don't know, maybe that resonates with you or not, but that was something for me that was a huge learning curve to not just immediately shame or squash that, but to realize spiritually and physically, it's a gift. Yeah.
No, I'm going to hold myself back because there's so much I want to say, and now it's just not the time because you have more to get to, but I'm going to say something quick.
Yeah.
This is also interesting. I had never heard the term nervous system regulation until you actually had been sharing about it on Instagram. Then I read a book about kind of that perimenopause, menopausal transition, and it talked so much about it, and it was very eye-opening. Then we're just wrapping up a human body unit in school with my kids, and we had a section on the nervous system, and it brought in some of what you were saying. And I don't think my kids were as wild as I was, but I was like, guys, like all these pieces are fitting together. And what you had to say about emotions, this is where I'm really just going to bite my tongue because we don't have the time. And I actually have another interview coming soon with a girl who put together a puberty course for moms and daughters.
Wow.
And I just finished it last night with Eden. And it wraps up with emotions. And she was saying so much of what you were saying. But it just echoed in all these different seasons in our lives as women, from puberty to having babies and postpartum, even into menopause, how important this information is. And I
Mm-hmm.
really do like what you said about emotions, because I feel like I kind of grew up feeling like if it's not happy or content or thankful, it's bad, and suppress it.
Yes.
So it was really good conversations with my daughter about why God created emotions. They come from Him. Like you said, they're a gift. How
Yeah.
we navigate that, how we work through that. Again, I'm not going to dive in there, but
No,
amen to everything you were saying.
oh,
It was
I
so
could
good.
say so much more. As I work more on one with women, I tell them, I go a little bit deeper and I say, it's actually a gift, that it's an unmet need. And a lot of times our greatest need is for Jesus, right? And usually it's a feeling of rejection, or a feeling of not being seen, not being feeling unworthy, or whatever it might be. So ultimately, it actually, we can flip a mindset rewiring shift, is that like, oh my goodness, I have all that I need in Jesus. But then also like, oh, okay, I see what the deeper root is. It's freeing,
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we'll keep going, because I feel like we could
Yes.
probably chat about that for a while.
For
Okay,
sure.
practical things. How can we support postpartum depression
Mm.
holistically? In other words, looking at from mind, body, and soul. And again, I won't delve too much into soul and spiritual, because that's already been covered. But two big words I want you to think of. The biggest one is nourish, and then safety. Okay, so when we're talking about the nervous system regulation, we're talking about how we need to signal safety to the body. One of the biggest ways we do that is by nourishing the body. Okay, and I feel like the term self-care has so many different meanings. And so I want you to literally think of, I need to take care of myself, like eat and drink. And as a mom, you need to take care of yourself, because I hope you have people in your life that are checking in on you, but maybe you don't. And I'm looking back, it's like, oh, wow, that was a big part of it. I was so focused on taking care of everybody else that I was losing taking care of myself, right? One of the easiest ways to do this, especially if you are really struggling with depression, it's probably hard to take care of yourself. Like, I feel like we start with masking for a while and then we just kind of lose hope, right? And then nothing matters, right? And that's part of that purple down there. Nothing matters. It's like we're watching our life happen in front of us and we're not even part of it, right? And it's hard to have motivation to do anything. So what I help moms do is, the easiest way to start nourishment is through drinks. Okay. Because thinking of a meal plan and all of a sudden now I have to buy all these different foods and all these things is so overwhelming. And so one of the easiest things to do is starting with a nourishing drink. So I personally love Ningxia, which is an antioxidant drink, and I would love to connect you with that. But another thing that I really want to encourage you to do is to drink a yoki drink. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but it is a warm, nourishing drink that, if you have access to good quality eggs, you're going to put an egg yolk in there. Okay. I have a whole guide on it. I would love to offer it to you guys for free. Just message me over on Instagram and I will give you a code to go download it for free. I keep it very affordable. So if you go to my website, you can get it whichever way you want.
Yeah, sure. And I'll put links where everybody can find you as well.
Yes, I will refer back to that in a minute, but I just want to make that note of drinks. If you need to start with one thing, because what you really you need one thing, start with drinks. I'm going to walk through a bunch of other things here, but just want to put that at the top. Takeaway, okay? Four pillars that I walk through, just foundational health for anyone, but especially if you're in the season. My four pillars are circadian rhythm, minerals, macros, nutrition, and then nervous system. Okay. So circadian rhythm is a gift from God. It is free and it is so powerful. I got to take like this quantum biology course that just blew my mind when it came to discovering how intentional God was when he created the sun and darkness. So this is one misconception. A lot of times when we talk about circadian rhythm, we only talk about sun and getting the morning sun, and that's absolutely crucial. Do that first thing as close to waking as possible. Avoid bright lights and get right out into the sun and try to take light breaks. That's the easiest way I can say it to you without going into all the science, which I would love to do because I'm a science nerd, as Brittany said.
Well, my other science nerd friend came and did a circadian rhythm episode.
Okay.
So I'll link that in the show notes.
Okay. Well, then just quick reminder, take light breaks. Probably try every 2 hours to get outside to 5 to 10 minutes, because your body needs to recognize all the different light frequencies. We were not created to live in boxes. We live in boxes. We get in a box and drive to another box to go to another box. We were not created to live in boxes. We need the grounding of the earth. We need the light from the sun. We need all the frequencies. One more thing, we also need darkness. A lot of times darkness is missed in the circadian rhythm. And so at night, this really does play. I'm bringing this out because as moms, a lot of times we're up late sitting with our babies, maybe nursing or rocking them back to sleep, and we're on our phones. Or we have a light on, and you might notice it's really yellow in here. I'm sorry for the bad quality screen, but it's because I have a yellow light bulb in my lamp. Okay. Because at night, your body needs to mimic what the outside is. Now, granted, I see that it's dark outside and I still have a light, but we're going to get as close to it as we can. I won't go any further than that. Sounds like you have a great resource on that. If you have questions, but that's one of the things that is honestly just foundational, and it's absolutely free to just learn more about circadian rhythm. Minerals is crucial. We talked about it a little bit, but your minerals is what is going to restore vitality to you. It is going to pour energy back into you. It is going to signal safety back to the body. It is going to help your thyroid. So many things that are depleted is huge with minerals. Macros, nutrition. I'm saying macros because we need to have a good range and distribution of nutrients. Let's make sure we're getting plenty of protein, but also good fats. Unfortunately, as moms, especially for breastfeeding, we're looking for something fast and something satisfying. And unfortunately, that tends to always be carbs. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying you need to cut carbs, but it's really crucial to make sure that we're getting in not just protein. I feel like protein is like the rage right now for a good reason, but also healthy fats as well. And if you're concerned, really quick plug, if you're concerned about gaining weight, if you start eating fat, just be careful with your carbs, your combination. You want to eat a fat and a protein together, or protein and a carb together. Just try to keep your fat and your carbs maybe a little further apart. But you need the calories as well. If you are breastfeeding, you need at minimum probably 300 extra calories, probably more like 500 extra calories. And this is just a pattern I see across the board with the women that I work with. Under eating severely. I encourage you to track your eating for a day or two and see where you fall. You need to be eating, the RDA really is right. 2000 to 2200 really is right, especially if you're active. If you're very sedentary, then yeah. Okay, we're taking too much time, but also whole foods. And then nervous system regulation. We don't have the time. Developing that awareness for even understanding what's in your body, utilizing breath work. I love pulling in essential oils for this because not only are you signaling through your breath to your body to relax, it signals that in your brain to switch to that other calming nervous system. Essential oils actually are a double whammy. The oils themselves have chemical constituents that actually literally will take your brain from fight or flight to calm. So pairing those two together, super powerful practice that you can do anywhere and everywhere. And it's a great thing to also teach your children. Have a whole nother thing about that. But also gratitude is huge with nervous system regulation. Gratitude and celebration. So having a gratitude journal would be hugely helpful. If trauma is part of your story, you probably are going to need to dig a little bit deeper. There are plenty of different modalities, EFT, brain rewiring. If you need more info on that, be happy to hook you up and help you out, help you get connected there. When it comes to supplements, because we all just want to know what pill can I take to make this better, there are a few supplements I recommend. I generally do not recommend too many things outside of doing an HTMA with someone, because if you over supplement, you can actually end up throwing things off more. And we're just bombarded on social media with all of our influencers on do this and do this and do this and do this, right? A couple of things you can't go wrong with. Magnesium really is always a great support. And I can give you recommendations there. As far as energy, methylated B vitamins can be really helpful. Minerals, I mentioned Ningxia earlier, a high quality sea salt. There's mineral drops that you can do, really easy ways that don't need to add a lot of brain power. It's just like, I'm just adding this to my drink. Again, back to the drinks. Getting minerals to your drinks is probably the easiest way to do it without being like all the food lists of all the things, right? And then I just want to encourage you to get your daily dose of play, okay? When we are depressed and when we are dysregulated in our nervous system, our body is in fight or flight and we're in survival. And one way we can signal that safety is by restoring a sense of joy and play and fun to our life, okay? So bring that spark of joy back to your days. So there's the choice of choosing joy, but I want you to chase joy, and not in the sense like just do whatever makes you happy. That's not what I mean, but find those little moments. I'm going to bring the yogi drink back in here. I've had people tell me, well, it takes like 5 minutes to make a yogi drink. I'd rather just whatever. And I'm like, that is actually half of the point. We have got to slow down enough to signal rest and nourishment to our body, and carving out 5 minutes in the morning or whatever it might be to be mindful. And that's where you can pull in, you can habit stack a lot of really great things. You can habit stack a yogi drink. You can have stack morning sun, whatever it might be. Have a rhythm in your day, be it 5 minutes making your yogi drink or laughing with your kids. Even if you don't feel like laughing, laugh with your kids, because laughing actually begets more laughter. But create 1 to 2 just 5-minute increments in your day where it is just devoted to something that sparks joy. And for me, when I was really depressed, making myself a nice drink was about all that did it. Okay. And so start small, and that you'll find your capacity grows and the spark begins to grow, especially as you're pouring nutrients in. Some joy givers, obviously Jesus, but laughter, music, get you some good playlists going. I had one called like Hard Days, and some encouraging ones, like find some that fit your mood, right? But the nourishing food and drink, and then nature. You cannot go wrong going out into nature. Not only does it help us see something bigger than ourselves, but it usually points us back to the Lord. And actually just being in nature itself is calming to our nervous system. Walking, moving your body is really, really valuable. And especially if you can do that outside. I feel like I am probably out of time, aren't I, Brittany? I should wrap it up.
No, I'm sitting here like, I wish we could just chat forever, honestly.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have anything to add that would not, I mean, you have done amazing. This has been so good.
Thank you for letting me share.
So helpful. Yes, I really
if
think
anybody wants to dive deeper, I'm happy to chat with you. I do have like a short, like 28-day little program that teaches people the foundations of those 4 pillars. Love to do an HTMA with you, however I can help you, or just chat, be a listening ear. Please reach out to me. Instagram's probably the best place to find me.
Yes. And like I said, I will be sure to put links and everything where people can find you and continue to get just this gold information.
Because I have some free resources and love to pass those on. So yeah, maybe I can just pass them on to you and you can pass them on from there. I don't know how that works.
Absolutely. I will be sure to share these things. Becca, thank you so much. I believe that these 2 episodes are going to be so helpful. I wish I would have had this. What is she now? She's 3. I wish I would have had this 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that God has brought both of us to a point that we can try to help encourage other people. So thank you so much for being willing to share a vulnerable part of your story and what God has taught you through that.
Thank you so much for having me, Brittany.